Welcome to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. I'm Dan Rowe, and I've masterminded the ascent of local favorites to global dominators. This isn't your usual get-to-know-you chat. We're diving deep. We're revealing the raw truths about franchise wealth building. With over 30 years in the trenches, I'm spilling it all. If you have an appetite for unfiltered tales and the hidden blueprints of franchise prosperity, buckle up. We're diving in. All right, welcome back to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. And today my guest is Kathryn Chayka, successful 65 plus unit, because I think you have 66 unit, multi-unit, multi-concept franchisee with Tim Hortons and Wendy's in the 51st American state of Canada, Toronto, Canada, Ontario, Canada. Anyone like the sound of that? So I'm excited about this podcast because this is a podcast about how much money comes from those who operate well, like really just showing. And in your case, we're going to talk about an older legacy brand where you've increased sales like $1 million a unit or some ridiculous number just by operating. And these are examples that are happening now, kind of proof and advice for anyone's looking to make money in franchising or just by operating the business, operating the franchise the way that you're supposed to. So to me, there's no time like today to build. The population's growing, so which means demand's growing, which means more hungry people want to eat. Sadly, you're seeing some restaurants close, which is sad, but it's also good news because of supply and demand. But and I didn't mean to say older legacy brands in a bad way. It's just the brands have been around for a while, so they're not sort of the new, fresh, Kava, Sweetgreen, or whatever hipster brand you talk about, and you're still killing it. So with that, how about your story? Tell me your story and how it all began and how you keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I really grew up in franchising. My mom's been a 20 plus year Tim's franchisee. She started with one store in Timmins, Ontario. She was there 6 a.m. every morning pouring coffee. Everyone knew her. It was really, she was really prominent in the community and really built that business up to now be 9 stores. And so I was always really impressed with what she had done. I was super interested in the business, but wasn't sure if that exactly was for me. So I did go to business school. And right out of business school, I actually worked for a woman, an entrepreneur. Her name was Kelsey Ranston. And she really taught me so much about just entrepreneurialism in general, asking questions, being humble, like all that sort of amazing stuff that entrepreneurs have. And so almost immediately out of business school, like I'm talking not even a year out, there was an opportunity to purchase Wendy's restaurants. So Wendy's started packaging their corporate-owned stores in Canada and saying, we're going to 100% franchise system in the Canadian region. And so we applied for the Canadian stores in the Niagara region. It was 12 stores at the time. And we got those stores. So that was sort of our first jump into franchising. And I'll say that starting with 12 is a lot. Even now having 65 plus, starting with 12 is a lot. It's a lot of people, especially being young and naive and not knowing much about the franchising space. It was a really big jump for me, but we continued to grow that market. We learned a ton through those first initial years. And in 2021, we had the opportunity to buy the Quebec market. And that's what you alluded to before, good operations and growing those sales. And the Quebec market has been an interesting one. I will say I was very scared to get into the Quebec market. Wendy's only had 13 stores in the province at the time, and it's the second most populous province in Canada. So you're kind of weighing that in your head going, either this is a really big opportunity or, we're the idiots going into this province. But it turned out to be a great opportunity. Like you said, we grew AUVs significantly, $1 million, and that was driven, 80% by transactions. So that wasn't, taking price on everything across the board. That was really getting down to the basics, changing some of the marketing tactics, and really making sure we had the right people running the operations on the ground. So we moved on to Quebec. We actually invested in some Tim Hortons at that time, just following the Wendy's there. Again, that was a brand that I was very familiar with, so that was an easier transition. And then just recently, this summer, we purchased 32 stores in the Greater Toronto area. So continue to build. We've opened about 6 stores this year, with our most recent one just opening this week. And so we still have big plans in the horizon. I don't know what next year is going to hold exactly, but we're definitely, young, hungry, and ready to keep growing.
And you're doing that now, 24, 25, 2024, 2025. So back to your mom. So obviously she had an influence on you. Describe the culture of Tim's in general, because Tim's is this, if people haven't heard of it, it's this weird, iconic, amazing brand in Canada. Like, people love it. I love it. Every time I go to Canada, I love it. But I mean, it's cult-like. And so what does that company do to connect with customers the way that they do? And then translate that into how your mom ran her stores.
Yeah, so Tim's is really that iconic brand, and it's funny because I don't know that there's another brand in the world that has the affinity that, Tim's in Canada has. It's honestly incredible, and I think the most interesting part of it to me is that they've been able to translate that across generations. So, it's not just my grandpa and grandma's, coffee shop. Like, my kids also think it's really cool. And I think that's amazing what they've done. I think one of the biggest things is just, their community initiatives. Sending kids to camp obviously resonates with a lot of people. Their Smile Cookie initiative. So if you don't know what that is, they sell Smile Cookies, which is just a cookie with a smile on it, with 2 weeks during the year. And all those sales go back to local charities, so the franchisees get to pick. And just to give you an idea of scale, this past year, they raised nearly $20 million. And so that is just, an incredible number to me. And it's clear that connectedness has really resonated with their consumers. So that's absolutely what I love about Tim's. And I think my mom really took that to the next level in her community. And she was always there. It wasn't just signing the check or giving somebody money to do something. Like, she was in the community, dropping the pocket at hockey games, or, helping out, volunteering, donating donuts to my school so that, I was the cool kid on the block. She was involved in everything. And everyone knew that she was the owner of Tim Hortons. So I think that part of it has really resonated with me.
And you'd said, I mean, this is a really important distinction. It might have to do with why the franchisees like Tim so much. So you said that Tim's, of the Smile Cookies, they let the franchisees decide where to put those in the local charities, right? So many chains don't. They're just so autocratic with their franchisees telling them what to do. And you have somebody that's in a corporate office that, some kid who's sort of, I don't know, but I mean, that's actually a pretty telling thing, that Tim's does this thing, and then they sort of foster, it sounds like they sort of foster this idea of you guys being part of your community.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that has to come from the top.
And so you took some of that with you. I mean, that obviously is part of your DNA. That's part of your fabric. And so,
yes.
So you started with Wendy's, you got the 12 stores. What condition were those stores, or were the sales in? Were they healthy, or were they sort of in need of someone to come pick them up?
So that market was definitely under the Canadian AUV average. And we're not quite at the rest of Canada level, but we're very, very close now. And so when I look at Quebec, I see still huge opportunity. I actually think, just given where we are in that market, where we're located, I think we could easily have AUVs that exceed the Canadian average. So I still think that there's lots of work to do. We have new franchisees coming into the market, which is amazing. Local franchisees. I think so many communities require a different approach. And so we're excited to see the brand continue to grow. I believe we closed out the year around 25 stores. So it's amazing to see that. It's more marketing dollars for Quebec Wendy's. And I really think that there is just a long way, up from here still.
Yeah. Well, and then talk about when you picked up the stores in Quebec, what condition, like just sort of to paint the picture, like what condition were they in? What did you do to turn it around? And because you said you increased $1 million AUVs, you didn't just get it to $1 million, you increased $1 million per store. But what did you do?
You know what? I think that the biggest thing is people. When you look at that, making sure that the right people are on the bus, the right people are driving the operations. That's first and foremost. The second is, you're in the franchise system to run the franchise playbook. And from an operations perspective, Wendy's is superior. Like they have a system for everything, and they have really perfected every aspect of their operations, even down to, where the onions are placed in the sandwich station. And so we shouldn't be coming in to rerun the playbook. Like they've given us the playbook. It's been tried and tested. And so that was a big thing. And then just looking at marketing differently and, going back to Tim's connecting the communities, I think giving the stores ownership to try different things, get involved in their communities. There's nothing I love more than hearing a manager say, my store, like this is my business. Like that excites me so much to hear them take ownership like that. And I want them to have the autonomy to make some of those decisions. Like, if you have a class come in and you want to give out free Frosties, that's awesome. Like, don't call me to ask me that. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to feel like they have control and power to build their business. And I think that ultimately yields the best results.
What do you think are like 3 things, if you had to boil it down to what are the 3 most impactful things that you would say caused you to be able to turn those stores around the way that you did? I mean, it's people is one of those 3. Let's talk about that for a second. But what are the 3 you had to think?
Yeah, people is absolutely one of the 3. When I think about people, I think about internal promotions. Like a lot of what we did was collaborate. So how do we get Ontario learnings into Quebec? And, how do we get them to understand what we're doing here that's working, but in that market? And I think that, we call ourselves a meritocracy. And I think that this is really important to having the best people. It doesn't matter, how long you've been around. If you come in and you are doing exceptional, like you need to be able to leapfrog people in the pay structure. Like you need to be able to move up and make more money. That's how we're going to hold on to the best people ultimately. So I would say people, we do a lot of things. It's really like a mosaic around people. I think meritocracy is huge. Just feedback solicitation in general, bonus programs. I think there is a lot just around people that we could talk about. The second thing is definitely marketing, adjusting, how that marketing spend was going and really pairing marketing with that community building and connectedness. And then the third, I'm going to go back to operations because I think that was super important and super instrumental in just making sure the customer has the same experience at every store and they know what to expect.
So on the operations, because it's funny, it never ceases to amaze me, all the people that want to buy a franchise and then change it. They buy a franchise and then they want to change it. And so in your case, your operations, it wasn't like you had to reinvent some new automated thing to do something. All you had to do is just turn the page of the playbook and just follow bullet by bullet exactly what you're supposed to do, right? Was it any harder than just doing what they told you to do?
I mean, it wasn't any harder, but I will say that that's not, easy necessarily. I think that operations is a little bit underrated. I think we see a lot of, capital coming into the franchise space that's not operations focused. And I think that that's where they're missing the mark ultimately. And if you're not operational, that's okay, but you need to have somebody that is operational running the business. And I will say that, there's many things you can do and change in this business. I would say that you're buying the operations, and that's not something you would really want to mess with.
Yeah, we had Five Guys. Like we had in the Five Guys days, we'd
Yeah.
have a store that struggled, and then immediately corporate or another one of us franchisees would take the thing over. All we did is went back to just operating exactly the way we were supposed to and picked up standards. This made it like it was supposed to, not better than it was supposed to or different, just exactly like it was supposed to. Every single time, sales always go up. So, and I'm just surprised that people don't focus on that. How about the marketing? What about the marketing? Like, what did you do in the context of marketing? Because you also part of a big company that had money going to TV and all that other stuff. So, what were you allowed to do at a local level?
Yeah, so I will give Wendy's a lot of credit here because we are our own DMA. Like we were the only franchisees at the time. They were really open about it. They were transparent about where, those corporate funds were going and how we could potentially allocate them. I even recall in the very early days, they saw the challenges we were having with the initial group of employees, and they said, let's use some of those marketing funds to drive like a competition for the employees, to drive like, a KPI. We want to drive some business result, but let's reward the employees with those funds. And so I think it's been a great collaboration for us. We saw things differently, which is fine. I think we both gave and took a little to come to the best conclusion, and ultimately, moved just the allocation of that money around. And yeah, I think it was a great collaboration in working with them.
But you would say I think you said that part of that money was used to incentivize your crew for doing a good job. Was that how did that work?
Yeah, so we actually had a speed of service competition. So that was one of the first things that we noticed was way out of whack in that market was their speed of service. I remember walking into a store that was reporting service times, but the wire to their timer was actually cut. So I had a good laugh, but obviously knew the reporting was not correct. So we got new timers, we got things rolling, and we had a fun competition. And the group that won got like a whole bunch of, tech items. We had TVs, Nintendos, like big ticket items that would excite them about winning the competition. And it turned out to be really fun.
And it worked, right?
It worked. Yeah, absolutely.
Incentivize the team to do a great job, makes the customers come back, because all they want when they go to Wendy's is what they think that they're going to get at Wendy's, right? They just want exactly that product. So it made that work.
Yeah.
That's good. What do you feel like you and your mom, like what are some of the lessons that you guys learned from Tim's?
Yeah, I would say that from Tim specifically, we learned the importance of community building. We learned the importance of just, being involved, taking ownership. I think for me, it was hard to then figure out how I was going to translate that on like a larger scale. So one of the more specific learnings for me was just that, ownership and accountability piece for each individual store, and making sure that they're able to execute at the same level that, my mom was doing, even though she owned the store.
When you were turning around some of the Wendy's, I mean, a lot of times that involves investing in the store, right? Got to refresh it, paint it, do whatever. Like, do you have a rule of thumb of what sort of ROI you want to see? I mean, sometimes you can't even get an ROI. You just have to paint the place. But like, how did you think about investing?
Yeah, so I mean, I think when we came into the Wendy system, that's when they were re-imaging the stores to the new image. And we were really excited about that. We started re-imaging stores pretty quickly, and we were seeing some significant sales uptick as a result of that. So, I think ultimately, like, it's twofold. You do want some financial, ROI on an investment, especially in a big renovation. But ultimately, like, we want our district managers to walk in a store and report to us like any issues that they see. We have an R&M team. So we have people, technicians that come in the stores to fix all these little things. And ultimately, like, customer facing and employee experience are number 1 and 2 on those lists. Like, if it's something that the customer would see that would, make their experience poor, that needs to be fixed. And if there's something that's, hurting the employee experience, that also needs to be addressed pretty quickly.
Yeah. Let's shift gears just a little bit to like advice for franchisors. Like what do franchisors do that they may not even know that they do that frustrates franchisees? Like you just said, Wendy's was good about collaborating with you on your marketing, but like what are some things that franchisors could do to be better franchisors?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, running their own playbook is definitely one. I think that the other one, and maybe this is a bit opposing to what I just said, is just they're not willing to change and adapt. I think franchisors at some points in times, need to make changes to the system or need to do things differently. I remember with Tim's, I wasn't involved at the time, but I remember everyone talking when they went from scratch baking to frozen donuts and muffins. And there was tons of pushback, not just from, franchisees, but from the community at large. And to think now that, somebody would want to buy a franchise or even be able to find an employee that would do this kind of work, like very labor intensive, start at 2 a.m., even thinking of the forecasting implications, like if you didn't make those donuts last night, you're not selling them today. Versus what we have now, it's crazy to believe that someone thought it was a bad idea. Now, I know hindsight is 2020, but at the time, I think there was a lot of pushback. So I think, on the other side of this, there needs to be some willingness to change and adapt. And it's okay to have tension. Like, it's okay to have those tough conversations. Like, if you're in a partnership with someone and you can't have those tough conversations, it's probably not the right partnership. But ultimately, the brand needs to make a decision in some scenarios. And I think as long as they're focused on the right result, it's right for the system.
Yeah. And then how about like any advice for somebody thinking about getting into franchising? Like do you meet people that just aren't right for franchising?
I think if somebody wants to get into franchising, it's important that they know it's not like a hands-off business. I think I talk to a lot of people more and more that think, oh, I'm going to keep my day job, but I'm going to get a franchise, for money on the side. It's definitely not that. I think especially in QSR, we know how slim margins are. If you aren't focused on, KPIs, if you don't have systems, to track absolutely everything you do, I don't see how you would be successful in this business. Like, I think there are franchisees that, of course, that aren't doing as well as they could be, maybe because they're not as focused as they could be. And, I always go back to the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Like, we're super detail focused. We don't let anything slide ultimately. And that's how you have to run the business.
Are you convinced, like the way that you guys are doing, or are you convinced if there's like another Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King franchisee that has sort of older stores, maybe a little rough around the edges? Are you convinced that like you could turn any of those things around, like just doing it the way you did it? Is there any reason that someone's not having the same success you are?
No, I don't. I don't believe that, there's something that we're doing that's like so specific to us that nobody can repeat it. I think, ultimately we care. I always say that our competitive advantage is that we have the longest view in the room because, we're in our 30s. And so I think that maybe, us being young, we're really relentless, we're competitive. I think we just have the drive that's getting us there, but I don't think there's anything to say that somebody else couldn't also do this. And I don't think there's one way to do it. I think there's many ways to get to the same result.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like this podcast because I started as a dishwasher and a cook, and people do underestimate operations. Like that's everything.
Yes.
And what you said a second ago, like so many people buy franchises, and a lot of franchise marketing is about owning a business that's passive. Like what about running at Wendy's as an ATM machine?
Nothing.
Nothing. So nothing. I mean, we have skincare, we have electronics. Like nothing about running any business is passive. You still have to be you still have to be aware and hands-on. You have to be in doing shifts, but I mean, I never flipped a burger for a customer at Five Guys, but it's like you still have to be close and aware, and for I don't know, like you've got to be part of what's going on for your employees to really like you too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, the Tim's thing is funny. I love Tim's, and it's just amazing that business does what it's doing. Let's try to face on like employees. What can people learn from you about the way that you treat your employees to get such great results? Is it only pay? What are the things that sort of make your employment thing work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've touched on a lot of it, but specifically to our organization, a couple of years ago, we knew we were scaling and growing, and we thought, okay, people are super, super important. How do we continue to grow people through the organization? Like we know that our internal promotees are our most successful. And so we sat down as a leadership team and we said, as executives, we need to connect with our junior managers. And so we developed what we call the Prestige program. So our shift managers, which is, our entry-level managers, they can apply to be in this Prestige program. And then every week they get a lesson with one of us. And sometimes there's pre-work, sometimes there's post-work, but ultimately it's just we sit down and we have a discussion and they ask questions and we learn from one another. And as a result of that, we've seen an uptick in people wanting to move up to the next level because ultimately we need the best managers to run the best business. So that's been huge for us. And then I think we've looked at the entry-level employees differently. We know that a lot of people come to QSR for their first job. And so we've looked at it more as like a responsibility. Like we need to teach them the importance of being on time and the importance of doing their best. And we need to help shape their moral compass. And we actually feel a responsibility to do that. And our best managers, the ones that do this the best, they have the lowest turnover. They, you can see it in their financial statements. They've really nurtured these new employees and taken them to the next level. And I think that this is especially important for Gen Zs because this is who we're hiring now, right? This is the majority of our first-time employees. They're Gen Zs. And so I think meeting employees where they are is super important.
And I want you to give me an example that people forget about. You just talked about you want to basically get great people and keep them longer, right? Because everyone forgets about the hidden cost of turnover. The hidden cost of turnover, like turnover is actually not even in your P&L. Like it's not in your labor cost of, the poor operations for being understaffed or you got to run ads and the kind of downtime when an employee first clocks in on his first hour of his first day, they're not exactly productive, right? So all that stuff is funny. So what are some things that you think that you do that keep people and pull them through the system and keep them there longer? I mean, you touched on it, but it just triggers something.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we do is we try to add more steps because I think people get more excited about moving up. And so we say, okay, if you can complete these tasks, you can move up to this management level. And so we keep people moving in the pipeline. But just a quick story, our HR manager actually was an assistant GM for Wendy's. She left, she was at one of our Quebec stores. She left, finished her degree, came back, and we hired her as an HR manager. And it's been amazing because, we've opened 6 stores this year. She can come in, engage with the employees and jump on the line and, make sandwiches and fries. So I think that's a great example of what we've done. And we hope to continue doing that in the future because that keeps that operations focus alive. And she can really empathize for the people that she's working with.
And I totally forgot to ask you about this earlier. What about Romania?
Romania. Yes, we're so excited about Romania. We've had an admin team in Romania for quite some time. One of my husband's company has been working out of Romania for quite some time. So it's not a new market for us, but we're really excited to bring Wendy's there. They definitely have a love for QSRs, especially American QSR brands. So we're excited to bring Wendy's to Romania. And it's honestly been a great opportunity for us because it feels like we've peeked behind the curtain a bit. In North America, there's things that we would never even be involved in and we maybe take for granted. But, in Romania, we needed to find fresh beef and chicken and, the entire supply chain. And so it's been really fun working through that, talking to people about marketing, talking to, local agencies. And it's actually, been a great learning opportunity. And we're really excited to launch there, which should be Q2.
How many are you opening and when and how many are you opening?
We think that the market has the potential for, about 100 stores. But we're going to start with, 4 to 6 a year, depending on, where there's availability, and we'll keep building from there.
And you say Romania likes Americana? They like Americans?
They like American QSR brands. Yeah, they're big, McDonald's, Popeyes, KFC fans.
Good. Well, because I worry every time I go to Europe lately, I wear Canadian shirts and Canadian sweatshirts because I don't think people like Americans. So it's good to hear that that's not true. But that's impressive. The any other thoughts or any other things why you think that you guys keep kicking butt?
You know what? It's funny. Our recent theme for our DM meeting was anti-fragile, and that's an Adam Grant term. But we really believe that we thrive under pressure, and the stress and the shock is really when we do the best. And I don't know specifically why that is. I will say, our DM team is super diverse in terms of, age, thought, background, experience. Like I have DMs that have been around 40 plus years and some that are brand new. And I think that having such a wide array of people really allows us to perform, better than somebody else. Like I think we are just taking things to the next level. And so I'm going to go with the anti-fragile theme. I think that, we're agile and we'll adapt. We know, there's things that we don't know about Romania, and I'm sure there's things that are going to come up, but we're really excited about the challenge.
Good. And growing as fast as you've grown, as many locations as fast as you've grown in different markets, is there anything that you've learned that, like, if you could have done it all over again, could you have been better, faster, more successfully, quicker?
I don't know if I would want to have done it faster or better. I think that a lot of the reasons why we, gotten to this point is because we've been a little naive about a lot of things. Had I known everything I know now, maybe I would have made different decisions. But I think that the most important part of the growth has really been, taking an inverted pyramid approach. And so at the top, we're here to support and serve the stores and the operations and the managers and the teams on the ground. And we try to take that approach with everything we do. Like, we're not very authoritative. We align on what the results need to be, but we're flexible on how teams get there.
Yeah. In every franchise system, there's always the best franchisees and then the spectrum all the way down to the worst franchisees. For you getting into Wendy's or Tim's, do you ever find it tough to get a hold of the more successful franchisees and get them to share? Like, I wonder why more franchisees of brands aren't constantly making friends with the people that are doing well.
Right. Yeah, I would say that the franchisees in our area have been really collaborative. We've been able to engage them even from the beginning. I actually love to engage larger franchisees and smaller franchisees because I always learn something. Larger franchisees have more infrastructure. They have, people dedicated to things that maybe is still a role that I'm doing. And so I love talking to them and hearing how they might look at things differently. I would say Wendy's in general does a good job of this. They have something, for example, called the Wendy's Energy Challenge. And that brings a lot of franchisees together that are focused on energy efficiencies. And that's honestly been one thing that has had, an enormous impact on the middle of the P&L, and who would have known, right? But just sharing best practices and then reaching out to people through those things. I think they do a really good job of that. And I think that the top franchisees are collaborating because they know that they're going to get more by talking to others.
Yeah. If I bought a Wendy's franchise today, that's the first thing I'd do is I'd say, who are the most successful people getting the results that I wish I had? And I would just go call them. And my experience is that they talk to it. So, that's just sort of a pro tip for anybody wanting to be successful is like, find out who's more successful from you and ask them what they're doing. 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you. So, and then just so that people aren't hearing it from me, obviously restaurant business is always hard, but we like feeding people. But with COVID, it got really hard. Even coming out of COVID, really, really hard. I feel like things are getting better. Getting people is getting easier. The costs are getting better. Some things are still wacko, but what do you think? Like, do you feel like things are getting better and easier and on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in Canada, the labor market has definitely opened up. We're not seeing significant challenges with labor as of right now. And I think from a supply chain perspective, we're not seeing huge increases on food cost either. So definitely a lot of stability, and consumers are still spending. So we're still seeing sales growth. I think offers, value plays a huge role in that. But ultimately, I think that this is a great landscape to get into the franchise space.
Do you guys, because I know Wendy's, I know a lot of QSR is value focused, but do you find like when you're marketing value oriented strategies, is that the only thing that's ticking, or that's just getting them in your door? Once they're in your door, they're going up and down the menu?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, if I'm being honest. I think in-store sales, it's getting them in the door for sure. And then, there's other menu items that I think are attracting people. The big one right now for me is delivery. So I'm really focused on delivery. And to me, you've got to be giving a really good value offering on delivery, because it's just too easy for customers to click on somebody else. There's too much information for them. I'm curious how AI is going to play into this going into the future. But ultimately, like, winning it on delivery, I think needs to be value focused right now. But when I say value, I want to be clear. It's not like cheap, food. It's like somebody wants a buy one, get one free Baconator. Like, they just want a really good deal and really good quality food.
Yeah, it's the perception of value, whatever because it's not just the dollar amount, but whatever they're getting just has to feel like it's worth more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, you made me want to go to Wendy's. Thank you very much. You're awesome. And you're awesome for sharing your story and being helpful and sharing your wisdom. So where can people find out more about you? What's your website?
So our website is jkcrestaurants.com, and I'd be happy to collaborate.
That's nice. Like, you're so sweet. Like, I hope people take you up on that offer, because, there's so much to learn. So, but definitely continued success, and thank you very much. And the happiest of holidays for you guys. And let me know when you guys are open in Romania. I want to go check that place out.
We will. Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And then to listeners, if you like this, you know what to do. Share it, like it, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. I'm your host, Dan Rowe. If you enjoyed today's episode, this podcast is only going to get better. Please like, comment, and subscribe to hear more from the most successful franchisors and franchisees, and we'll see you next time.